Hey everybody, this is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com here in San Diego, California. If you're on a cross-country tour and you got a problem, you know where to call. ScooterWest.com, we can overnight parts to you, get you back on the road. Today I'm going to cover the most basic set of tools that you could have on you if you're going on a long distance overnight tour with your scooter, or you're going on your world adventure with a Vespa GTS. The most basic set of tools, how do you get the wheels off the scooter, such as if you had a flat tire. This is something I've come across in my long distance tours on a GTS, and I've always just kind of thought, like, what's the most basic set of tools? Of course, when I'm at the shop, I have wonderful tools that make the job super easy. I just want to see what we can get away with for doing this on the side of the road. I'm not going to even put the scooter up on a lift. Let's get right into it on how to remove both the front and rear tire with basic tools. So first of all, I'll show you the tools that are included with the scooter. Not much, but there is one tool that will come in handy if you have an ABS equipped model, and that's the T25 Torex driver. The rest of the tools are completely useless to change a tire. The four tools that are critical and needed to change a tire is a diagonal set of pliers, also just this called dikes or side cutters. You want a mid-size one. A real small one may not have enough leverage. I would say this is a 6-inch size diagonal. You're going to need an adjustable wrench, preferably a 10-inch or even a 12-inch adjustable wrench. This will be able to get enough torque on the axle nut to remove that large axle nut and adjust to the various sizes of fasteners. Along with it comes in handy if you got to tighten your mirrors. And the two critical tools for the fasteners are the 6mm Allen key and the more difficult to find T40 Torex Allen key. Or it's not an Allen key, a Torex key, I guess you'd call it. So that's a T40 style one. This one's kind of a trick one with a swivel on it. But if you have these four tools and the single tool from your factory toolkit, you can pull the wheels off your scooter. You can in fact pull both wheels off and bring the wheels to a tire shop to have the tires changed. Could be all you need if you're a do-it-yourself mechanic and you don't have a garage and you got to do this on your front porch or something of your apartment. This is all you need. It's obviously not as handy as having a full workshop with you. And the last thing you do want to have on hand is a cotter pin. Our partner number on this is 012789C. So fortunately, the front's really easy. All you need is a 6mm Allen wrench. You can find these at an auto parts store, wherever. You can find them in assortment to get the whole set. 6mm is the size you're going to need. I'm going to take out the front. Pretty simple. You got a set of 5 Allen fasteners. And even with it this length, you should be able to get your palm on it and open them, just break them free. If they're any tighter than that, they're probably too tight. One little tip is you can get the wrench, at a position where it's fairly horizontal. Make sure it's all the way in the thing. If you're on the side of the road, you can get your foot on there. Keep in mind I have the scooter on the center stand, and just give it a little step. If you ever change a car tire, you kind of do the same thing with the little wrench. Keep in mind you got all 5 of these, and when you pull them off, you're going to have a pair of washers. So you got the wave washer and the thick flat washer. Make sure you don't lose those. We're going to put them back in. Typically, I would put like a log or a brick or a backpack underneath the frame, and that would be enough to lift the scooter. So when the scooter's on the center stand, you can easily lift the front of the scooter with very little force. It's maybe 60 pounds just to lift the front. Slip something underneath the frame, you'll be able to get the front tire off with ease. And of course, when you get back to your workshop, it's very important to torque these to about 16 foot-pounds. And if you're on the side of the road, what is 16 foot-pounds? Well, it depends on how muscular you are. If you're a scrawny robot like me, I don't know. You can put that in there and just put your palm on it, give it a good little push, and do that on all your fasteners and kind of do it in a crisscross pattern. So you're much more likely to encounter a blowout on the rear tire. On the Vespa GTS, it tends to run a lot hotter, and it's just more prone to a blowout, in my opinion. I rarely see front blowouts. Of course, the difficult part of this job, if you want to do this while everything's hot, this muffler is going to be this scorching hot and burn your hands if you touch this. If you were just getting off the highway, even 20 minutes later, it's still almost too hot to touch. So either wait till it cools down, or you're going to need to have a good set of heat-resistant gloves on you. So first of all, just get down on the ground. I have the scooter up on the center stand, which may be difficult to do when you got a flat. There's going to be this clamp. I have an adjustable wrench. I set it to about 17 millimeters. And I find, like, for this scooter, the best size just all around wrench to do this whole entire job is like a 10-inch wrench, like is what I'm using here. A 12 or 14-inch adjustable or monkey wrench is a little too large. The little teeny 6 and 8 is a little too small to get the leverage on the rear axle nut. So just go ahead and turn the clamp a couple turns until it feels fairly loose with a wrench. You don't need to have it where it's completely loose and wiggling around. I just want to leave the clamp in place because we're not going to replace the exhaust gasket if we're doing this job on the side of the road. Next, you have a set of 3 fasteners that hold your muffler in place. This is a little bit trickier to find. This is a T40 wrench. You can find them that look similar to the Allen style wrenches, or you can find a deluxe one like this. I mean, this is a fancy Blue Point or Snap-on one. But I have seen full assortments with a T40 wrench. Alternatively, you can have a ratchet on you. But I really like this little tool. It's really compact and lightweight and be perfect for a trip. So start with the bottom one. Of course, that's the easiest one. Get your T40 Torx bolt on there. And again, if they're pretty difficult to break free, I'll show you a technique that you'll be able to easily see on the Allen fasteners in the rear. So go ahead and take all 3 of the fasteners to hold the muffler in place. Be careful not to blast your knuckles out, because if the wrench slips, you're going to have bloody knuckles. And if the muffler's hot, you're going to have burnt hands. So just keep in mind, this could be a kind of a difficult task to do, on the side of the road when the bike is quite hot. And of course, the most difficult fastener, you got to get your hands way up in there. There's not much room to get the wrench in there because you got a fuel tank right above it. So you may need to go a couple tries to get this one loose. Something like this, you can flip it around and get a better angle on the Torx fastener. And once you're loose enough, you can kind of work it. So no power tools here. And if you're really struggling with something, your adjustable wrench will be your friend. So you can oftentimes put the adjustable wrench and cheat, use it as like a cheater on the, your Allen fastener, or your Allen wrench, or Torx wrench in this case. So get that one out. And the last one, it's very important to support the muffler, because otherwise the bolt's pretty difficult to get out when it's dragging on the muffler the whole time. So if you're wondering how to do this in the shop, you can see a video I did a couple of weeks ago where I changed the rear tire on the SuperTech, 2020 SuperTech. Pretty much same steps, but I'm just doing it with simpler tools. So I'm pulling the muffler off very, very carefully because I do not want to damage that exhaust bushing. And sometimes the clamp may hang up. One thing to keep in mind with this clamp, obviously when it's cool, you can open this up just a little bit more if you want to reposition the clamp. And typically you want to have it cover up the holes, you know, these little holes when you put it back in place. So the only tool I'm going to use from the toolkit included with the scooter is this T25 Torx driver. And there's the speed sensor wire for the rear wheel speed, and those clips that hold the wire in place are retained by the T25 Torx screws. So go ahead and remove both those screws, pretty self-explanatory. If you have an older model Vespa GTS from 2014 and earlier, it's not going to have the ABS system, so it won't have this sensor on the rear. All the same steps except for no sensor. So go ahead and remove those screws. Keep in mind you're doing this in the dirt on the side of the road. Kind of have some organization system for your fasteners. This 8mm Allen wrench may be a little tricky to do with an adjustable wrench, but it is possible. So go ahead and adjust your wrench down where it bites onto two flats of that screw. And if you watched, there was an extra washer that fell out. And if you're wondering where that washer sometimes is, it's on this side. So keep that in mind. Sometimes I do not have an extra washer. That's just there to shim it. But if an extra washer falls out, make sure you do not lose it and you put it right back in its correct spot. Next, you'll need a set of diagonal pliers. You have a cotter pin that retains a cap that protects the main axle nut from ever coming loose. So go ahead and roll the cotter pin just like that. And say you're on the side of the road and you do not have an extra cotter pin or not even a nail as a temporary retainer, you can use your diagonal pliers to kind of manipulate the cotter pin so it's almost straight. It's not recommended that you ever reuse those, but in a pinch you certainly could. So I'm just using my diagonal pliers to lever this cotter pin right out. And say I was stranded with no other means, I would probably save that part. Pull the cap off. Next, we'll go ahead and loosen the rear shock. Adjustable wrench back to 17mm. And keep in mind this is a nylock locking nut, so it's going to take several turns to get it off. You're not going to be able to spin that freely by hand. And then pull the large flat washer off as well. Go ahead and pull your rear shock off and just set it to the side there. And the next step is the pair of Allen fasteners that hold this right side swing arm to your engine case. So 6mm, just like the front tire there, the front wheel. And once you have them broken free, you'll be able to spin them off freely. And keep these separate from the wheel bolts. They are slightly different. They have a different washer arrangement compared to the wheel fastener bolts. And you may wonder, how do you get this nut off? I'm by myself, out in the middle of nowhere, stranded. All it does is turns. Well, guess what? If you look through one of your spokes, you have 3 holes on the disc. You got an outer and an inner and a center hole. So go ahead and rest your Allen key carefully in there and get your wrench where it's locked. And preferably you want to have the fix set at the top. You want to make sure this is as tight as you can get it onto that nut. And I happen to have it in a very good angle, so that lined up there. I have this kind of at the 9 o'clock position, and just keep it there. Grab the handle of the scooter, the grab handle, and you can use your foot, and that will break it free. And that's why I suggest having like a 10-inch one. I have done this job with like a little 6-inch ratchet, but you can see how tight I have this adjustable wrench on there. It's actually grabbing the nut. This is a pretty nice quality adjustable wrench, obviously a cheap one. You may have some issues with it wanting to slip off, but worked fine. It's set to 24 millimeters, which is where it's very, very tight on the nut. So no problems slipping that off. Go ahead and pull this off. Of course, your next dilemma. Say you were riding this thing in the rainy roads. Well, guess what? There's a problem. Oftentimes, this axle shaft will get seized up onto the bearing in there, and you know, with a fresh one like this, it slides right off. But I'll show you a tip. It may take you a long time. You may need to get a rock. If you're going to use a rock, I would suggest damaging the end of this nut versus the end of your axle. The axle is a very expensive part. The nut's inexpensive, and even if it's banged up, you'll still be able to get it. So the key to getting this off, if you're having difficulty, is sometimes just little shock waves. Sometimes it just takes a little bit. See, I'm putting a little pressure behind this swing arm plate and tapping it. Say it was really stuck. Maybe you can get a helper, somebody to help pull this, and as you're tapping on this, it sends a shock wave through the axle and causes it to do it. You can see some of my older tire videos where I've used a specialized tool that we make at scooterwest.com or sell through scooterwest.com and make here that will press this off. But that's how you would do that if you were stuck on a desert island and had to change a tire. But obviously, it's kind of nice on this brand new scooter, so I feel like I'm kind of cheating, but you would need to give little shock waves through this axle shaft to be able to pull this off. So now we're almost to the end here. And again, the tire wants to spin like crazy like that. Well, fortunately, you hopefully have more than just one Allen on you, so just like that. And I'm going in an alternating position right here, you know, like crisscross as I'm removing it. Somebody got fun with a yellow paint pen at the factory there. So the nice thing about this 2020 is the tone wheel is separate from the wheel nuts. Some of the earlier ABS models have a different arrangement. You'll need a 13 millimeter wrench if you have that alternative arrangement. But they kind of figured it out by, I think, 2017, 2016. It's just the very early ones. They had something else going on for how they've attached a wheel. So keep that in mind. You might look at your scooter if you have a 2015 or a 2016. So I'm just pulling all these screws out. They're Allen fasteners, and of course they have a little bit thicker washer than the pair of washers that holds the swing arm in place. And I'm not going to bore you through all the steps of putting it back on. It's pretty much exactly reverse of what I did. It's just really critical on your torques when you put it back on. And when you're doing it with a hand wrench, that may be hard to judge. But at this point, with the scooter on the center stand, I'm able to easily remove the tire. And you can either do a tire repair on the roadside if you have the tools and ability to do that. Or at this point, hopefully you can find a tire shop or a llanteria down in Mexico or wherever to replace your tire, fix it, patch it, replace the stem, whatever means you may need to do to carry on with your journey on a long distance tour, or just minimize the whole hassle of towing a scooter. Even if you do a 50-mile jaunt or a 10-mile jaunt from the house, you know, a tow, you may be able to fix the tire quicker than doing a tow. And there's anywhere you go in the world, there's tire shops that would be able to handle just the wheel alone. They may not be able to handle the task of removing the rear wheel, especially considering that you need some specialized tools. So one last little tip before you put the scooter back on the road, hopefully on a long distance tour, you just have a bottle of oil on you. But you typically want to put a small amount of oil on this axle shaft so the bearing does not seize up onto the axle shaft. And fortunately, you got some handy oil right from the motor. So you can take the dipstick and just dabble some of the oil onto your axle shaft. You do that in a pinch. Obviously that's not ideal, but in a pinch you can certainly do that. So there's some critical torques when you put this back together that you should know. Obviously with basic hand tools, you're not going to be able to get an exact torque. But all the fasteners that use an 8mm thread, which are the 5 that hold the wheel to this hub, the 2 that hold the swing arm to the engine, and the 3 fasteners that hold the muffler to the swing arm. All those screws are about 16 foot-pounds. For your shock bolt, 25 or 30 is sufficient for that bolt. The critical fastener is this highly torqued rear axle nut. So you put the rear axle nut on, of course you have the spacer right behind the rear axle nut. I see people get this spacer in the wrong place, but this spacer goes between the bearing and the nut goes up against that. And once you have that torqued, hopefully they're around 80 foot-pounds, or alternatively you could set up your Allen key in one of these rotor bolts and crank it pretty much as tight as you can do by hand, or a quick little step to tighten it up. It's not 100% critical. It's more important that you have a cotter pin back in place. So ideally, if you only torqued it to 20 foot-pounds, it'd probably do the job to carry you on in your journey. But you put this this cover on the bolt, and you might try a different position so it lines up with the pair of holes on the axle. You drop the cotter pin in. Actually, I'll demo it with old cotter pin, so you see the cotter pin's not going to want to go in with an old cotter pin. You use your wrench as like a little hammer, and go ahead and split the cotter pin back open since the ears have been cut off. And the easiest way to do it is you just twirl your diagonal pliers, and that's how you get that nice twirl in the cotter pin. I've seen other people do it other ways, but this is kind of the cleanest way to do it. And you can put the cotter pin all back in. Of course, with the wheel there, this is just a demo right here, showing you how to do it. So this is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and ScooterWest.com. I sure hope this video has helped somebody out there, whether you're stuck on the side of the road in Peru, or you're just looking to do a budget tire change without taking your whole scooter to the shop and want to do this in your local community park, what tools you need and what you need to change both wheels on your Vespa GTS 300. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, this is Robot here from Vespa Motorsport and Scooter West. Subscribe to our channel. I have everything covered for all the Vespas, both vintage and tons of Vespas for videos for the modern Vespas, on all that do-it-yourself stuff, lots of fun accessories, and a couple trip videos. Hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe to our channel. Stay safe. Until next time, Robot here.